In the deepest part of the ocean lies a power never meant to be awakened. One prince gave everything to protect the realms below. Now, as darkness rises again, a new defender must rise. The tides of war are crashing. Magic is unraveling. And the truth is more dangerous than any spell. A prince's sacrifice. Can the merfolk survive what comes next?
Deep beneath the vast, mysterious ocean, where the sunlight could never reach, in a cave that glowed with a gentle, ethereal light. It pulsed with ancient magic, blue and green, warm yet heavy, like the breath of the ocean itself. Within it, the survivors of the merfolk trained with silent determination. Princess Ibi, the regal and resolute leader of the surviving merfolk, Ife Diora, her fierce protector, One Kem, the calm strategist with eyes that saw beyond war, and Somtochukwu, the youngest among them, but by far the most powerful, and several other warriors. This was no ordinary training. Each movement carried the weight of vengeance. Each spin of a trident echoed the loss of a kingdom. Each breath held back the scream of those they had buried beneath the waves. This cave was more than sanctuary. It was a war room. A heartbeat waiting to explode. Then, a ripple tore through the silence. A spy, soaked in seawater and blood, stumbled into the chamber. "Urama," he panted, falling to one knee. "He's marching for Egu. He believes we're dead. He's coming to claim the land." Time stopped. They had feared it, trained for it, but now it was real. Somtochukwu, barely 17, stepped forward. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "Then it's time we rise." Princess Ibi looked at him, the flicker of fear hidden behind her royal mask. The boy had his father's courage, and his mother's heart. The merfolk nodded. Their time in hiding had ended. It was time to take back what was stolen. Before they left, Somtochukwu sat alone, staring into the glowing pool at the center of the cave. It reflected more than his face. It showed memories. Queen Ugama, the human woman who raised him like her own. Princess Ibi, the one who gave him life in the ocean's cradle. His two mothers, two halves of a whole, joined in him. He whispered into the pool. Why must the bridge always break just to connect two lands? The water didn't answer, but something in him shifted. He understood now. He was not meant to choose between land and sea. He was meant to become the bridge. The sea raged as a storm of darkness crept from its depths. Urama rose first, tall, cloaked in a tattered black hood, glowing red eyes burning through the mist. Behind him, twisted creatures slithered and stomped from the waves, their bodies soaked in rot and power. Every step they took poisoned the earth. Every breath they exhaled darkened the skies. Palms withered, sand turned black, water boiled. The peaceful city of Egu shattered in moments. Citizens screamed as they saw the horror approach. "Run! To the hills!" Someone shouted. Mothers clutched their children. Market stalls were abandoned. Drums of warning pounded across the land. Inside the palace, King Ikem stood from his throne, face grim. Queen Ugama joined him at the balcony, eyes widening at the chaos below. "They've come," she whispered. Without hesitation, the king shouted, "Sound the horns! Rally the warriors!" His voice thundered louder than the storm outside. Within moments, warriors armed with spears, blades, and shields poured into the palace courtyard. Some took defensive positions, encircling the palace with discipline and fury. Others ran toward the riverbank, their feet pounding the ground in rhythm, prepared to meet death if it meant defending Egu. And at the edge of the water, the fog parted, and Urama smiled. At the borders of Egu, Urama's army stretched like a shadow across the land. Twisted creatures bred from dark magic, their limbs no longer human, their eyes glowing with an unholy hunger. Just as they prepared to invade the town, the ocean itself screamed. The merfolk emerged. Like a living wave, they crashed into the enemy lines. Tridents, magic, light. Chaos met darkness in a spectacle of raw power. Somtochukwu darted through the battlefield, his body moving with the rhythm of the sea. He spun, summoned towering walls of water, and cast waves that flung beasts through the air. Then he saw him, Urama, standing in the distance like a monument of death. The sorcerer smiled. "You survived," he said. Somtochukwu clenched his fists. "And I will make sure you don't." Their clash was violent, explosive. Light met shadow. Water twisted with fire. Each strike shook the land, stirred the sea, and made the skies above them tremble. The powerful strike from Urama pushed Somtochukwu backwards as he fell towards Princess Ibi. Urama smiled. "Is this all you got, boy? I will crush you just like I crushed your father and the others." But the tide began to turn. The darkness was ancient, endless. It began to consume the battlefield. The merfolk were being overwhelmed. Even the humans, led bravely by Queen Ugama and King Ikem, were beginning to fall back. Hope flickered. Then, behind the front lines, Princess Ibi did something no one expected. She had no choice. She reached into her cloak and pulled out a pendant. It glowed with blood-red light, chained in black obsidian. It pulsed, alive, humming with power. Somtochukwu's eyes widened. The Tidebringer's heart. Ibi's voice trembled. "I didn't want you to use it. It drains everything from the one who wields it. It will sever your connection to both land and sea." He stared at it. "So I'd be ordinary." She nodded, pain in her eyes. "A mortal. Forever." Queen Ugama from a distance on land stared, wind in her hair, eyes full of tears. "I raised you so you could live," she shouted with tears in her eyes. "Not die a hero." He looked at them both, his birth mother and the woman who gave him her world, and without another word, he took the pendant and placed it around his neck. The battlefield froze. A light exploded from within him. Pure, white, blinding. It soared through the sky and struck Urama like lightning from the gods. The sorcerer screamed. His army withered. The ground cracked, and the air sang with water and fire entwined. Then silence. Somtochukwu stood at the heart of it all. And slowly, he fell to his knees. Princess Ibi ran to him first, her heart breaking with every step. His tail was gone. His scales had vanished. His gills no longer drew water. Where once was a prince of the sea, now knelt a boy, human. He looked up at her, weak but smiling. "I'm still your son." She fell beside him, holding his face. "You always were." Queen Ugama came next, dropping to the earth beside them. He reached for both their hands. "Two mothers," he whispered. "One tired boy." And they wept. Peace came like a gentle tide. The merfolk emerged from the shadows of myth. The humans of Egu, once terrified of the ocean, now stood beside it with pride. And Somtochukwu, now mortal, now magicless, was crowned king of the merfolk, not because of his powers, but because of his sacrifice and his lineage as the rightful heir. He became the heir of Egu, the bridge between two realms. He ruled not with spells, but with compassion. He traveled between sea and land, telling stories, building trust, healing wounds. His legend spread, passed down from voice to voice, wave to wave. One night, by a fire beside the sea, a child looked up at a storyteller and asked, "Tell me again, how the boy with no magic saved us all." And the old man smiled, his voice full of memory. He didn't need magic, he just needed love. And the courage to give everything for those he cared about. Because sometimes the greatest power is simply choosing to protect what you love, even if it costs you everything. As the years passed, the world of land and sea had grown closer than ever before. The divide between humans and merfolk, once so wide and insurmountable, had been bridged through trust and understanding. The marriage of Somtochukwu, the heir to both the human kingdom of Egu and the underwater kingdom, was to be the final step in solidifying this peace. Somtochukwu stood at the heart of the union. His lineage, both human and merfolk, ensuring that the two realms would continue to coexist. His marriage to Nneka, the surviving mermaid princess, would ensure that his bloodline lived on, a legacy that would unite the surface and the depths for generations to come. The ceremony, held on the shores where the river met the sea, was a momentous occasion, signaling the dawn of a new era. As Somtochukwu and Nneka exchanged vows, the ocean whispered its approval, the waves shimmering with a promise of peace and prosperity for all. Their union was not just one of love, but of duty, a pledge to continue the work of their forebears and safeguard the fragile bond between the human and merfolk realms. With their marriage, the future of both worlds was secured, and Somtochukwu's lineage, with a mermaid bloodline flowing through it, would ensure that peace would reign for years to come. The land and sea had found harmony, and with the union of Somtochukwu and Nneka, the legacy of unity would continue for generations. The story of their marriage would be passed down as the final chapter in a tale of struggle, love, and the coming together of two worlds, forever intertwined.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to stay connected by leaving your thoughts in the comments, giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when a new content drops. We appreciate your support and look forward to seeing you in the next video.